Welcome to day 3 of our 150K Topstep combine on TopstepX. You can see that I am getting ready to enter into one contract of NASDAQ at 6:49 my time. That would have been 7:49 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you've seen the day 1 and day 2 videos, it should be obvious to understand why exactly I entered this trade. If you haven't seen those videos, go ahead and watch those whenever you get a chance. So as you can tell, price has tested the top band of that Ichimoku cloud. I'm setting my profit target towards the highs from the earlier parts of the day, and I'm setting my stop loss below the lows that were previously made several hours before this trade had began. One thing to note is I entered this trade with only one contract. My reason for doing so is because this cloud was so thick that I knew I was going to have to set a very wide stop loss, and I didn't want to risk so much money that it would blow up the account or cut the profits in half, so I only took one contract on this. Even though throughout the entirety of this trade, I really wanted to enter in for more contracts. Now, one thing that I actually do not do is scale into a winning contract. I know most people say never scale into losing contracts. However, those are the types of transactions and scaling in that has always worked for me. For some reason, anytime I have scaled into a trade when the trade had already been profitable, it ended up not working out for me in the end. Now, some people might be thinking that the most recent bar in this video hadn't actually touched the cloud, and that's fine. I do consider this testing the cloud because you can see where I entered in is actually below the cloud if you were to shift that bar maybe half an hour to the right or half an hour or an hour to the left. I kept telling myself that I would scale into more contracts if price came back down and retested the cloud. However, that didn't really happen, and this trade was a fairly easy one to manage. I've been noticing recently that there seems to be this pattern of price testing the lower band of the cloud, breaking to new highs, making a retracement, and then testing the upper band of the cloud. So that's something for me to think about in the future and to see how consistent that actually is. In fact, I made some trades earlier in the day from that test of the lower band of the cloud, and I made some considerable profit. However, if I held on to this thing till after the New York Open, those would have been some seriously profitable trades. This trade ended up being the longest of the combine so far, lasting nearly 2 hours, where the rest of my trades seem to have lasted about 30 minutes or so. With that said, let's speed things up a bit. At this point in the trade, life is calling, and I can't sit at my computer all day, every day. So at this point, I had to actually turn off my cam, walk away from the computer, and do my best to manage the trade away from the computer. In reality, some of my best trades have been from walking away from the screen. There have been times where I have entered into a trade, did not set a profit target, only a stop loss, took a nap, and woke up to 10,000 in profit. I can't help but think that maybe walking away from the screen during a trade might actually help my profits. So many times I will see the profit and want to stop early, be happy with 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000, when I could have made a lot more if I just wasn't at the screen staring at the profit and loss. Either way, here I did my best to manage this trade while being away, and luckily I didn't have too much to worry about. Whoops! This was a big mistake in regards to streaming. What had happened was, while I was away from my computer, I logged into TopstepX from my phone so I could monitor the trade while I was away. I had completely forgotten that when you log into multiple instances of TopstepX, the initial one that was set is automatically logged out. So apologies for missing some of the trade, however, I did notice it in time to correct it. Alright, back to working order. As I get things back up and running, I start to worry a little bit more about my stop loss. I'm thinking that price where it currently is at a level of resistance. And who knows if it reverses right here, especially with that spike shifted to the right of that Ichimoku cloud. Many times I will see price stop and reverse at those lowest or highest levels of the cloud. So I move my stop to beneath the upper band of the cloud with enough space that I don't really think that if there is a test of the upper band that it would reach that point. And if price did reach that point, maybe it was a full-blown downward trend. I'm getting ready to speed things up to the New York Open. However, you might notice that my camera stays off for the majority of this trade. I keep having to return and leave and return and leave. The camera comes on, I turn off the camera comes on, I turn off the camera. It just becomes too much, and I eventually decide to keep the webcam off, keep the stream rolling, and manage the trade from behind the curtains. So let's take this to the New York Open. Here we're about 10 minutes away from the New York Open, and I'm starting to get really cautious. One thing I end up doing is, at first, I lower my stop to its original place. I do this because I know during the first few moments of the New York Open, there could be wild, violent movements in price, especially with the NASDAQ, and we might see that lower band of the cloud tested within those few short minutes. Then I decide that I'm going to move my stop above the initial entry point so that if there is a downward movement, I would end up with a little bit of profit at least, and then buy back in at a better position. I couldn't help but think that this was a really stupid move, because so many times it seems as if price would come down, hit my stop for a very small profit, and then immediately rip to where I had initially set the profit target. Alright, 10 seconds before the New York Open. And we're off. If you're unfamiliar with what the NASDAQ looks like during the New York Open, this is potentially very mild. It does look like the camera is sped up here, however, this is real time. This is why anybody trading with an open position during the New York Open especially with NASDAQ, needs to be very, very cautious. It does seem like there are much more buyers at the New York Open, so I moved my stop loss yet again to a place where I can buy into more contracts if I need to, if that upper band of the cloud is tested. We're 2 minutes into the open, and bulls have created a rather large spike in that candle. So I move my profit target to the very top of that candle, assuming that we will reach those same prices again in the very near future. The profit is over $1,000, and for me, that is good enough. Now it's time to cross my fingers and wait. We're 3 minutes into the New York Open, and all I need is one more big push.
Order filled.
And there we have it. The trade is finished. Nearly 2 hours later, 3 minutes into the New York Open, trading one contract of NASDAQ for a grand total of $1,037.20. Price did end up going quite higher after this. However, I'm still happy with the end result. Taking a look at the statistics, we are at a grand total of $4,471.44 after 3 days. Nearly half the way towards completing this combine. We still have a 100% win rate on our trades and an average trade total of about $500. As I scroll through my stats, I see that I have an average trade duration of 22 minutes, so again, this trade was much longer than the previous trades taken in this combine. And there we have the totals for the last 3 days. 2,435 on day 1, 998 on day 2, and 1,037 on day 3. If you're still watching this, I can't thank you enough, and I really look forward to seeing all of you in day 4. For those of you that have subscribed, thank you. If you haven't yet, please do.